Atheist Experience. And if you have been watching the Mormon Conference for the last 2.5, 3.5, 4 days, however long it's been on, don't change your channel just yet. We're going to have a little bit more information for you, we think at least. There's some interesting things going on in the Mormon theology that needs to be talked about. But anyway, for right now, welcome back to the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Ashley Perrien, and my co-host this week, Keryn Glasser.
Hi.
Thank you very much for coming by. We are live today. It's April 3rd, and we're being sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at Crescent City Beignets on 6th Street, a couple blocks west of Lamar. Those start at 11:30 and go until about 1, 2 o'clock. It's very open, very friendly. Any atheist-friendly people, you're more than welcome to come down and meet and chat and schmooze and eat donuts and drink coffee. And basically just socialize. You do not need to be a member of the group or anything like that. That's every Sunday at 11:30 at Crescent City Beignets, save the third Sunday of the month. We have our lecture series at the Austin History Center on 9th and Guadalupe. The next one of those is going to be, I believe, the 17th, April 17th. And I don't have in front of me actually who the speaker is going to be, and I can't remember who it is, but I think we do have one lined up. If you go to our website, atheist-community.org, and click on the calendar, there will most likely be information there on the details. But again, that's going to be April 16th or 17th, the third Sunday of the month, at 9th and Guadalupe.
17th.
The 17th, is it? Okay, 17th I've been told. All right, other regular things that we do. Every Monday night we have Atheist or Godless Gamers. Every Thursday night, Atheist Happy Hour. We have several different social things going on. And again, if you go to our website, calendar page, there'll be more details there. A couple quick notes for members of the group. Next week to any board members who are watching, ACA will be having the board member next week. That's on April 10th, so keep an eye out on emails on exactly where that will be, but I believe that will be 10 o'clock in the morning. Also, ACA members, next election for new board members is May 1st. That's going to be at Joy East, which is down south on Pleasant Valley Road, I think it is. And again, that's coming up May 1st, so if you're thinking about running for the board or have any questions or anything like that, definitely get in touch with us. Let us know what your thoughts are, and we'll go from there. But again, important date to keep in mind, May 1st, if you're an ACA member, elections. Please come by and help us out. All right, that is it for our regular announcements. As always, we, the cast and crew of the Atheist Experience, have been going out to dinner after the show, and we're continuing that today. We're going to Chili's on the southeast corner of I-35 and 183. The show ends at 6 o'clock. We'll be down there around 6:45 or thereabouts. And again, atheist-friendly people, more than welcome to come down and meet us. Christians, Mormons, Buddhists, Taoists, New Agers, whatever. Don't. We're not there to debate. That's exactly what this show is for. If you have any questions or comments or concerns or arguments or whatever, please call us. Phone number will be up on your screen momentarily. And go ahead and use it if you got anything. All right, as I said about Mormonism, there are a couple things up with that would be kind of funny. And since we were preempted, since they stole the first half hour of our show this week, figured it's only fair to give them a little jibe. First, we'll go over what actually comes up on, this is actually religiousTolerance.org, their website. It basically talks about the Articles of Faith of the Mormon Church. Number 1, we believe in God, the Eternal Father, and His Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost. So they are Christians. Full Christians. Now, they do go on to explain, which is kind of nice, they lay it out that these are 3 different beings. They are polytheists, in a sense. Christianity waffles on that issue, as in the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Are they one person? Are they 3? Is it God? Is it the Son of God? They're kind of wishy-washy on that one. They lay it flat out, these are three separate beings. We believe that men will be punished for their own sins and not for Adam's transgressions. Thumbs up for the Mormons on that one. They don't agree with original sin in the sense that you will be paying for it. It's always nice to kind of get off the hook for that one, since I could not have possibly been responsible for that in any way, shape, or form. So if I screw up, I pay for my own sins. At least that's somewhat fair. Lake of fire, maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but at least I'm paying for my own. We believe that through the atonement of Christ, all mankind may be saved by obedience to the laws and ordinances of the gospel. Skipping a couple here, we believe in the same organization that exists in the primitive church, namely apostles, prophets, pastors, teachers, blah, blah, blah. So they have the same organization. It's not like the Baptists, where anyone who has a good idea can go out and preach the word and, say what they want, essentially. They have their hierarchy, sort of like the Catholic Church does. Also, the head of their church, the president of the Church of Latter-day Saints, is considered to be a prophet. So he can get new directives and actually speak directly with God. So he has a hotline to the big boy. We believe in the gift of tongues, prophecy, revelation, visions, healings, interpretation of tongues, and so forth. So as people who fall down and start babbling in tongues, they mean something. We believe the Bible to be the Word of God as far as it is translated correctly. Interesting sticking point there. We also believe the Book of Mormon to be the Word of God. So, they believe the Bible to be the Word of God as far as it is translated correctly. So, anything that they don't agree with could be considered a mistranslation. And what we have here, there are actually two different sites that if you want to know a little bit more about Mormonism, they could be interesting to look up. It is xmormon.org and lds4u.com. They're interesting sites, both written by former Mormons, I believe. And they talk about a lot of the teachings of the church and some of the not quite so pleasant ideas and some of the things that you learn about that they don't teach you at the first meeting. What they say here is, although Joseph Smith said that God had pronounced the completion of the translation of the plates as published in 1830 correct, meaning he translated the Bible from these golden plates that God gave him, many changes have been made in later editions. Besides thousands of corrections of poor grammar and awkward wording in the 1830 edition, apparently God needed a grammar check, other changes have been made to reflect subsequent changes in some of the fundamental doctrine of the church. For example, an early change in wording modified the 1830s acceptance of the doctrine of the Trinity, thus allowing Smith to introduce his later doctrine of multiple gods, going back to the polytheism. A more recent change, 1981, as recent as 81, replaced white with pure, apparently to reflect the changes in the church's stance on the curse of the black race. I believe it was 78 that they finally said, okay, it's not actually black people that are cursed and can't be priests and such. They're just different genetically. So they've kind of backed off of that racism thing, but apparently Indians have their red skin because that's a curse from God for fighting out the actual people who populated North America at the time. Let's see. Anything else really interesting? Not especially at this point. There is one fun thing that we can go over, and we can go ahead and put the phone number up too. Again, if you're watching, have any questions or concerns, we are live today. It is April 3rd, and so the phone number will be on screen. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and call us up. We're running a little bit short this week. Again, the Mormons took over the first half hour of the show. So we're on from 5 to 6 today, so we're going to be getting to phone calls a little bit quicker. This is one that we bring up every time that we're preempted by the Mormons because it's just too much fun not to. It's the Mormon Guide to Steps in Overcoming Masturbation. Apparently it's by Mark E. Peterson, or at least attributed to him. He is one of the Council of Apostles or something like that, or was in the church. and he made a big long speech on how to overcome the evil curse of masturbation. And some of the things that he has here: if you are associated with other persons having this same problem, you must break off their friendship. Never associate with other people having the same weakness. Don't suppose the two of you will quit together. You never will. Very strange thing to be talking to your friends about, but okay. Put wholesome thoughts into your mind at all times. Read good books, church books, scriptures, sermon of the brethren. Make a daily habit of reading at least one chapter of Scripture, preferably from one of the four Gospels in the New Testament, or the Book of Mormon. The four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, above anything else in the Bible, can be helpful because of their uplifting qualities. So that is the guide to self-control, but specific suggestions on all of this. Pray daily. Ask the gifts of the Spirit, which will strengthen you against temptation. Pray fervently and not lout when the temptations are the strongest. Change in behavior and attitude is most easily achieved through changed self-image. Spend time every day imagining yourself strong and in control, easily overcoming tempting situations. Be outgoing and friendly. Let's see. Make a pocket calendar of the month on a small card. Carry it with you. Where is it? But show it to no one. If you have a lapse of self-control, color the day black. Your goal is to have no black days. The calendar becomes a strong visual reminder of self-control and should be looked at when you are tempted to add another black day. Keep your calendar up until you have at least 3 clear months. And number 19 is always the most fun. In very severe cases, it may be necessary to tie your hand to the bed frame with a tie in order that the habit of masturbating in a semi-sleep condition can be broken. This can also be accomplished by wearing several layers of clothing, which would be difficult to remove while half asleep. So, apparently they don't like masturbation, but they're not too bad with S&M. So anyway, they have some wacky things with the Mormons. If anyone has actually seen, they have a South Park episode on there, which it's basically the telling of the Book of Mormon, in terms of how it came to be discovered, how Joseph Smith came about, found the plates, translated them, and so on. It's not all that far from the truth. There are, again, websites out there I found in Mormon theology that back this up. Just the wording is such that obviously South Park puts a spin on it that, the Latter-day Saints Church won't. But it's very, very interesting. Basically, he gets these golden plates that were shown to him by God, puts them in a hat, puts a couple rocks on top of it, sticks his head in the hat, and starts reading the plates. No one else has ever seen these plates except for a couple close friends of his. And then when the plates were taken away, he can't translate them again, so they're missing. So he comes up with a different version of the story, sort of like the four Gospels are all different from each other. It's an absolutely hilarious episode. So if you do manage to catch it, definitely watch that. All right, let's go on to a couple callers now. I have done my spiel, and I don't believe you've really got anything significant. No stories or anything? Okay.
No, I'll save it in case we have a drought.
If we have some time, we got a couple of stories we can go over, but for right now, let's go on to callers. We have got Harold. You there?
Hello, how you doing?
Hey.
Yeah, I was going to touch on shed some light on the Mormons through the Meadows Massacre.
Okay. Did you call in this last week, or?
Well, you had another guy call in about that.
Yeah.
And I researched it a little bit. It happened on September 11th in 1857.
Okay.
And the Mormons basically, it was John D. Lee, who was the adopted son of Brigham Young, who led this attack on these settlers.
Okay.
There was a whole wagon train of settlers that were coming through Utah.
Okay.
And they basically killed them all, and they found forensic evidence that they were actually shot.
Wow.
And the Mormons claimed that the Native Americans did it.
Yeah.
And
so they were kind of trying to protect their land because they settled there first or something?
Yeah, they saw it as their land, the Holy Land, or whatever you want to call it, and they saw these people as trespassers, basically.
Okay. Interesting.
Also, I know you're not really down with it. You called it a couple times a can of worms, but there are definite links between Mormonism and Freemasonry. Joe Smith himself was a Freemason.
Okay.
He wrote it in his own book.
Okay.
On page 551.
Okay.
He says, in the evening I received my first degree in Freemasonry at the Nauvoo Lodge, assembled in my general business office.
Okay.
The very next day, he noted becoming a Master Mason. I was with the Masonic Lodge and rose to the sublime degree.
And basically everything, I did a little bit reading up a couple weeks ago on Freemasonry, just because we had a couple calls on it and hasn't really gotten anywhere. My impression of them through their documents and what they actually say, all of it is, I kind of come away with a feeling like it's kind of like a grown man's Boy Scout. They don't have any very specific theology of their own. They say that they're not a religion. You have to be theistic to become a Freemason. Exactly. You have to profess a belief in God, but that's all there is. They're not saying you must worship in this way, or this is the God you must believe in, or anything like that. They're basically saying there's a God, it's up to you to find out who that God is, how to worship him, what to do about it, anything like that, but you just got to believe in a God. And so it's like that, and it's basically just kind of like a men's club type thing of just getting together and being brotherly or something. So again, it sounds mostly to me like just the Boy Scouts for older men, really.
Yeah, well, they are they're architects, right? They're masons, right? They build things, right?
Well, and originally, I would think that's where they came. That's where the name came from.
Figuratively too, they built the society in which you live, and you got to understand.
I wouldn't go that far.
The founding fathers.
They're pretty open.
The founding fathers were Freemasons, and a lot of them were.
Not all of them were. A couple of them were, but again, it was, from everything I could tell, kind of just a men's club.
Well, what's the Ku Klux Klan? A men's club, right?
Yeah, but they had a specific agenda that they were shooting for.
And Albert Pike wrote in his book, wrote in his own newspaper, an editorial which called for the existence of a secret order which only the members would know the names of each other, which kind of backfired. But I think it was actually, Albert Pike was the leader of all Freemasons in the southern jurisdiction during the Civil War.
Yeah.
And he called for a secret society which they could band together and testify in court and stuff against black people in case black people wanted to rise up against them after they were freed.
Okay. All right. Anyway, getting back to Mormonism, though, did you have anything else to add on that?
Well, there's a lot of really crazy similarities, and a lot of the rituals that they do in in the Mormon churches, in the priesthoods and stuff, are totally directly linked up and related to Freemasonry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and get on some other callers now. But thanks a lot for calling in.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I had something in mind, but I forgot what it is now. Anyway, I assume it'll come back to me. So. All right. Anyway, we've got a couple of other callers here. Again, we're not looking to get into Freemasonry here. We've been over that a couple times, and basically, this is a show about Mormonism, or atheism specifically. Trying not to get too far off the topic of one of those two. If you have a question about Mormonism, we can try and ask. If you are a Mormon, even better, call us up and correct us. If you got questions on atheism, that is our forte. Let's go on to Judd. You there?
Yeah, I'm there, Ash. How you doing?
Pretty good. What you got for us?
Just a couple things. First of all, one man's religion is another man's belly laugh.
I had that quote in my email for a while.
That's right. I think I sent it to you.
Okay.
One thing, you're talking about homosexuality and the atheist view a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
I thought I heard you say that atheists aren't sexy. Did you say that? Because I'm a very sexy atheist.
Okay, well, we'll trust you on that.
You remember that show? It's like 2 weeks ago.
I don't know if I said atheists aren't sexy, but...
We certainly are.
It's
certainly are.
Thank you.
There's something that bothered me. Last week you were talking, you said if that issue does arise, we'll attack that. And myself as an atheist, my personal mission statement is not to disprove or not to prove the non-existence of God at all to anyone. It's my belief. It's the other religions that are trying to, of course,
impose that
onto us. And everyone has a right to believe what they want. And be a Christian, that's absolutely fine, but please don't close my liquor stores at 1 o'clock.
Exactly.
On Sundays, and there is no separation of church and state.
Yeah.
Secondly, they were called the Golden Tablets, I believe, and I never heard that anyone other than John Smith had seen them. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
He did translate them on the other side of a bed sheet in a room, evidently, from what I've heard from my Mormon friends. And if you want to have a good time at a party, You invite one Mormon, never invite two, because they don't act right then. There was just on the History Channel, a short documentary on hell. Did you happen to catch that? Anyone?
No.
On the history of hell in the Bible?
No, cool.
Well, that was also a very good, I don't want to make any comments on that, but I do like the Mormons being in the bondage. I think that's great. And that's basically what I had to say. I love the show. Keep it up.
Okay.
Once again, we're not out there to attack anyone. The Pope died. Death is a horrible thing for anyone, whether a Christian or anyone else, and we are not rejoicing in his death in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
And once again, we don't want to attack anybody, Ash.
Yep. All right.
So why don't they just leave us alone?
Exactly.
We'll talk to you later.
Exactly. Thanks all for calling.
Bye.
Yeah, it goes back to it's religious people who are basically making the proposition or putting forth the idea that there is a God, you must follow his laws, and we will legislate accordingly. They have the burden of proof. They're the ones making this stuff up and putting it forward. It's their job to back this up. If they can't do that, the only logical thing to do is say, sorry, don't believe you. I don't believe in God.
I think I didn't follow most of that phone call because it was referencing previous shows, and I've been away for a while. What about atheists not being sexy?
I am not too sure on that one. The only thing I think is, again, talking about, I think we had a caller a couple times about atheist view of homosexuality, and basically just the idea that we don't care. It has nothing to do with is there a God or not. So atheist or gay or straight doesn't matter. So it's just not an issue.
Okay.
Now how we got to atheists are not or are sexy or something like that, I'm not sure. I missed that connection
Sounds
there.
like it.
But
something that could have been brought up by a prank call. But that was a little nice little segue that he brought up into the fact that the Pope died last night.
That is true. Or was it yesterday?
Huh?
That was yesterday. That's right. I forgot.
Last night.
Okay.
Very sad, we're not sitting here. I honestly don't really know anything about the Pope's reign. I don't really follow that very much. But I did look up the article and read through it. And he died last night after having a long struggle with Parkinson's disease, which I work in a nursing home. I know that Parkinson's disease is just not something that's fun to have.
Yeah.
I believe he suffered from all kinds of things at the end that sort of, I seem to have lost my third page, but he had a UTI and he had kidney failure and he had a lot of nasty things going on there at the end that contributed to it. And they're going to be burying him,
they said in some kind of
Thursday or something, and having some kind of memorial service on Monday or something, and then they're going to go through the process of trying to find a new pope. And I'm very interested about what that process is. I have no idea how you go about finding a pope.
From my understanding, they're elected. So they're going to have some of the higher cardinals and bishops or whatever it is get together in Rome. They're basically going to be locked away in a room no sooner than, I think it's 5 days after he died, but no later than 15 days after he died. They'll basically be locked in a room. They'll vote on somebody, and then they can come out again, essentially.
So in 2 weeks we should know who.
So in 2 weeks or thereabouts,
is.
we should have a new pope on our hands.
Interesting. So who does the voting?
Like I say, from my understanding, it's some of the higher up bishops in the church. So, cardinals or bishops? The higher up people in the church.
Cardinals.
Also, like I say, this isn't something to rejoice, obviously. Someone dying is never really considered a good thing. And also the fact that he is one of the more innocuous people out there. He didn't go around the world stampeding and saying that, Christianity everywhere, down with secular governments or anything like that. So he was light in that sense. Jerry Falwell, he's a little bit more, he's got some more things to say.
Okay. There is something in this article that I read that really struck my attention. It says, after the doctor certifies his death, tradition calls for the Vatican Camerlengo Cardinal, I'm not even going to read the name, who will run the Vatican until the new pope is chosen, to call out his baptismal name 3 times. He then strikes the Pope's forehead with a silver hammer to ensure that he's dead.
Yeah, I've heard that. They mention that also on Snopes.com, which is one of these websites that debunks all these urban legends and myths and stuff like that. And they said it was indetermined. that's one of those things that it sounds so preposterous that I would basically put in the category of, no, that's a misunderstanding or something like that. To say that, I mean, you go to the Pope and you thump him with a hammer a few times to make sure he's dead.
I mean, this article is from the New York Times, so...
Yeah, basically they're saying one of the problems with some of these things, though, coming up is the questions, is because how often does the Pope die? You have very, very few references to back up any of this stuff, because this is the first time it's happened in, I think it was 25, 26 years. So it's not something that's common that you're going to do all the time. So...
And then after he strikes him in the head with a hammer, who gets to be the person that does that?
Who gets the silver hammer?
The hammer is then also used to destroy the papal ring, the symbol of his authority, which I think is
interesting.
Kind of sad, because that could be a nice little, trinket in history, or something you could put up in a museum,
like that would be
or
something
family
that would be
heirloom
passed
or
on.
something. Yeah.
It seems like that would be something that would be passed on to the next pope or something.
Right. That's too bad. So I guess they make the next pope a new ring.
I guess
they do.
If any Catholics are watching and know anything about this, let us know about the ring and mostly about the hammer.
I actually had a dream the other night. Oh my God, this was a couple of weeks ago. That I dreamt that the Pope had died, and that he was supposed to choose a successor, and he hadn't. He'd refused to choose a successor, and so they were going to have trial by stone. If any of you have ever seen The Dark Crystal by Jim Henson, they were going to have trial by stone, and all these people that wanted to be Pope were going to go up to the stone and start hacking away at it to see who could take the biggest chunk off the stone, and whoever took the biggest chunk off the stone would get to be the new Pope.
Wow, that's an interesting way of going about it. Hey.
It was a very amusing dream.
I think the current way that they have of doing it, getting people to vote on it, is probably a better idea than saying who can whack off the biggest chunk. Otherwise, we're going to have Arnold Schwarzenegger as the next Pope.
So it says... in the last few weeks before his death, it says the Vatican said the body of John Paul II would lie in state at the St. Peter's Basilica no sooner than Monday. The Italian news agency ANSA reported that his funeral is to be attended by leaders from all over the world, was expected to be no sooner than Thursday.
Okay.
So I suppose if you're an insider, they'll give you more specific
possibly
invitation than that.
Okay. All right. Anyway, it's about 4:30 or 5:30 right now. We're going to go on to a couple more callers before the show ends at 6 o'clock. Let's go on to Steve. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, what's up?
I am an atheist. I am about 50 years old, but when I was in my 20s, I think I was already an atheist, but I was still really trying my best to figure out how to believe.
Okay.
Just because I wanted to, my family did and everything, and I just was struggling with that.
Yeah.
And but I was big on arguing about things back then and discussing things because of that. And of course, the Mormons will come to your house and talk to you.
Yeah.
And so they came by one time, and I got into a long discussion with a couple of these Mormon missionaries, and had them all explain it to me, and it ended up I kind of guilted them into leaving me a Book of Mormon. When they were going to leave, I said, "Will you give me that book?" And they said, "Well, this is ours." And I go, "Well, you mean you're going to come over here and try and save my soul, and you're not going to give me one?" So I made them give it to me, and I did read it. And the thing that it did for me, when I read that, intuitively, it was somebody wrote their own Bible. It happened pretty recently. It's clearly, that's what happened to me. I mean, that's my interpretation.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any trouble, with that. And then look at all these people that believe it. And all it said to me was, if you took it far enough back the street, it might be harder for me to see that truth.
Yeah.
And so it was more circumstantial or anything, but it gave me a certain amount of, this is what we're dealing with all of these fantastic stories. Is somebody made it up at a certain point in time, and it's accreted and accumulated.
Yeah.
And, it's just easier to disbelieve something that's happened more recently because you can sort of see through it all, and the implausibility is so much stronger than the belief.
Yeah.
And it actually helped me along the way to realizing, this is how these these old texts are, So,
So the Mormons turned you atheist.
Well, I'm not saying they turned me atheist, because that's not really the case, but to me, the fact that somebody could write their own Bible, convince everybody that no one saw it, but it really happened, and it's all miraculous, and then actually found a religion in the last couple hundred years, or however long it's been, 300 years, I don't know how long, but and have it have that much belief is amazing that can happen. But the fact that it can happen explains a lot about a lot of religions to me.
And it's actually been about 120 years or thereabouts. So it's not that long ago.
No.
But it's interesting that again the Book of Mormon talks about a civilization that's been going on in North and South America for the past 1,000 years. That's familiar with all these different farming techniques and money and just tons of different things that are relatively modern. And archaeology hasn't found a single one of them. So apparently they have this huge 1,000-year civilization, but we ain't seen a scratch of it.
Yeah.
So kind of skeptical of that.
It's real easy to be skeptical of, I think.
Definitely.
Being something separate from what my raising was, it was very easy for me to be skeptical of it. So it was just sort of an example of something that, anyway.
Yeah, I've never been visited by a Mormon, but of course I've always lived in apartment complexes, and I guess maybe they don't go there or something.
No, I was in an apartment when this happened. So.
Oh, really? I've never been visited by one, but I did have a friend that was a Mormon once, and I had a long conversation with him, and he told me a lot of really, really interesting stuff that I was, my reaction to it was like, and you really believe that?
Yeah. They're very polite. They're very nice people.
No,
really.
He was really nice. He was a good friend of mine.
I actually respect them as people. They behave well and everything. It's just...
I did, in fact, know another person that had converted to Mormonism because he believed something was going to happen something like the end of the world or Y2K or some big catastrophe was going to happen, and there was actually, the Mormons had built this entire underground city that was like a bomb shelter with lots of food, and anybody that was Mormon could go live there when the end of the world happened. And so he'd converted to Mormonism just in case something ever actually did happen, then he could get in.
Well, it was kind of like Pascal's wager there.
Yeah,
he had a good reason.
So when I spoke to him, it sounded to me like he didn't really believe any of the religious stuff. He just wanted a free ticket into the underground city, under Silver City, I think.
I don't know. It sounds vaguely familiar that I might have read about it, but I can't.
So if anybody knows anything more about that, you can call in and let us know about it.
I'll let you go, and you can have that caller call you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks for calling.
This was all stuff that I'd heard. I'm sounding so vague, but this was all some very interesting conversations I'd had with interesting people back in college. So.
Okay. All right, let's go on. We've got an interesting one here, I believe. It is... Our phone's doing interesting things now, so I'm going to take a pause on that one for just a second. Callers, if you're on the line, please stay there, and we'll get to you in a minute. Quick thing I wanted to say, though. There's this radio guy that I listen to after work. He comes on weeknights, I think it's about 7 to 10, thereabouts. A guy called Neal Boortz. He actually has a libertarian political type show, but he talks about a little bit of everything. He had two interesting strings of thought recently that were very relevant to this. Not specifically what we're doing Mormonism or anything, but just to the show in general. First off, he was talking about Terri Schivao and that whole case, and he had some strong Christian call in who was saying that it was God's will that she be kept alive, and that we, do everything that we can to fight for her life. And he countered and said, well, what about, and you're going to have to forgive me, I forgot the name, but there was this 9-year-old girl maybe a month or two back, who was raped and killed. And so he brought her up and said, was it God's will that she live? And the guy said, well, of course it was. And he goes, okay, then what about Terri Schivao? What if it's God's will that she should die? And we're just stringing her along, keeping her alive. And he says, well, you can't defy God's will. If God wants something, it's going to happen. And so then he brings up the girl again. And they start saying, and so he brings up the girl again, saying, well, what if God wanted her alive? Why isn't she alive? Christian conveniently went on to other points at that point and kind of skipped out on the whole thing.
I think our caller is actually on right now. Dave,
yes,
are you there?
is there a caller?
Hey guys, hi.
Hey.
Hi, there is. Okay. So, control room. Stop putting people on for us. Anyway, I'm sorry. Dave, you're there. What you got for us?
Just a couple of quick points, no big deal.
Okay.
The silver hammer thing is actually true.
Okay.
It's just very, very ritualized at this point. It's not like they actually whang the guy on the head. It's just a tap.
So it's kind of
silver
like
mallet.
just in case he wasn't dead.
Right. From the old days when, hey, maybe you couldn't tell, right?
Exactly.
500 years ago.
So, I mean, what was knocking him on the head with the hammer supposed to accomplish? Was it supposed to accomplish that if he's not really dead, he'll stir because it hurts to get knocked in the head?
Right, I guess he would.
Or is it that if he wasn't really dead,
he would just wake him up?
then he'll... Oh, okay.
In fact, what they really do is they call out his name 3 times.
Yeah.
Then they tap him on the head, and then they use that same hammer to destroy his pope ring, his papal ring.
That's tragic. I think that's tragic.
Yeah.
It actually is true. Real quick, actually, last week I mentioned to you, since you're going to do the Mormons, you might want to look up the Meadows Massacre. Did you cover that? I missed the first part of the show.
I didn't go over that, but we had a caller that called in and filled us in on the details of that one.
Okay, great.
So yes, it was covered.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
That's it. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks for calling. All right. Okay, the other thing that I want to talk about, again, going back to that radio show guy, Neal Boortz, he went off on a rant on Christian bashing, which was great fun to listen to. Basically, again, he was talking about Terri Schivao, and he relayed this story, which I don't know how true this is, but it makes a good point, even if it's not, that down the street from the hospice was some guy who had an auto mechanic store, and it was like him and his kids that ran it, and this was, their business and their livelihood and everything. And the people who were going to the hospice were actually parking like in his driveway and on the street and stuff like that, blocking off his business. So he goes out there one day when I want him getting out of the car and says, no, you got to leave. This is my property. This is my store. And they start waving a Bible at his face and screaming at him and cursing him out. And that got him onto this huge long rant saying anything that anyone ever does for any reason against a Christian, Christians immediately come back and say, well, you're Christian bashing. Anytime that you say that Christians are wrong for this, that, or the other, you're Christian bashing. Anytime you tell them that they can't run this country and make laws to affect everybody, you're Christian bashing. And he went on for about 10 or 15 minutes on this, and it was just great. He made some really good points, but it's just nice to see some mainstream people on the radio. They got this guy Neal Boortz who's on at night. There's another guy I listen to, some Dr. Dean Edell, who's on when I'm driving to the show usually. And
glasses?
What is that?
Dean Edell that makes glasses?
I don't know about that.
Huh.
I've never heard of any glasses thing. But anyway,
to sell them.
he's a doctor on the radio, and Dr. Dean Edell, and he does. It's basically a medical show talking about news and latest drugs and all that kind of stuff. But every now and then he'll bring up little points that just kind of go after the Christians. He talked today. I heard him talking about the IMAX, which I don't know if you heard about that. They got some movie out there that's being shown in the IMAX theaters that mentions evolution and that the world is so many billions of years old and whatever. And Christians are out there protesting this. They're going in front of the IMAX theaters and protesting these movies because it conflicts with what the Bible says. And so he railed off on them for a little while. And so he's hit a couple different things on. And so it's just great to see these people who are on mainstream radio, at least in Austin, making these points and basically saying, Christians, sorry, you're not running the world, and we're not going to let you. So that was excellent. But yeah, that's, again, Dean Edell, Neal Boortz. They got good people on the talk radio sometimes. All right, let's go on to yet more callers. We've got about 20 minutes left. We have Mike. You there?
Yes.
Okay, what you got for us?
I was just going to ask this question. Would you say that the Christians aren't really unified as one?
No, certainly not.
One voice.
absolutely not.
It depends on exactly how you want to word it. No, they're not. Christians all say different things, and they all point at each other saying, well, that's not a real Christian. But they don't necessarily silence each other. When they've got one up there saying something completely wacko and far out, you don't hear the mainline Christians coming along saying, no, he doesn't represent us. He's just weird. So you don't get 90% of Christians standing up looking at Jerry Falwell saying, what is up with you? They all kind of just go along with it for some strange reason. So they all disagree, but they don't voice those disagreements as much as I would like.
Now, would you agree that there's like the same bloodshed of the Protestants and the Catholics of Ireland, or that no longer exists?
No, that definitely still happens.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, missed the point of that one, but yeah, again, Northern Ireland. What's going on there for years now? I mean, this has been going on basically as long as I can ever remember. Between the Protestants and the Catholics, just basically warring all the time, bombing each other and stuff like that. They're nuts. Again, religion is just going a bit too far in that. All right, let's go on to Russell. You there?
Hi.
Hey.
I just heard you talking about radio shows that don't kowtow to the religious right.
That's right.
And first of all, Keryn, Dean Edell is the glasses guy, yeah.
Okay.
And he's excellent. However, I think you would be remiss not to mention the fact that Air America Radio now has a station here, 1600 AM, and
that is true.
You'll hear a lot of excellent stuff that would appeal to atheists.
Okay.
Unless, I mean, it is liberal, but
yeah.
But, you know, it's not right-wing religious Christian stuff.
Yeah. It's a nice bend.
The only other thing that you'll ever find on AM radio.
Yeah.
Right?
So yeah, well, not the only thing, but... No, because the guys I was... Neal Boortz, Dean Edell, they're both on the AM.
Oh, really? Okay.
So,
I don't listen
so
to
yeah, it's a little bit of everything. Yeah, I know that they've only been broadcasting for what, about a month now.
Right.
3 weeks.
Is Neal Boortz an atheist?
No. I actually went to his website and kind of looked it up a little bit, and I think he posts himself as a liberal Christian. Okay. I don't know exactly, Methodist or whatever, but a very liberal Christian who obviously doesn't believe that you should impose your beliefs on everybody else, stuff like that.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of Neal Boortz personally, but I have heard him say some things that I agree with on religious subjects.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So, all right. Got anything else for us?
That's it.
Okay. Thanks for calling.
calling in. I have some more articles I could read through.
Okay, sure. Hit it.
Just for this article here is just an interesting little tidbit on crazy things that happen in the world for religious purposes. In San Pedro Cutud, I think, in the Philippines, at least 11 mostly impoverished villagers have signed up to be nailed to wooden crosses and crucified in a bloody reenactment of Jesus Christ's crucifixion that draws thousands of tourists to this northern village every year.
That sounds familiar.
An official, this article was posted to the list.
Oh, okay.
May of 03?
Okay.
No, that's wrong. I don't know. Anyway, I looked it up today, and 4/3/2005 is when this article was written. No, that's today. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, so turns out there's this little village in the Philippines where they have a little festival every year where they nail people to crosses, and people volunteer for this.
Yeah. I also heard, again, it was some guy who was basically certified lunatic, who tried to nail himself to a cross. And, I mean, he actually had the wood, laid out in his living room type thing. And obviously the plan failed when you lean over and nail this hand down, and then, shit.
He didn't realize that?
I don't know. I mean, if you're going to nail yourself to a cross, you obviously lost a couple of your marbles anyway. So it's not that big of a stretch that you'd forget that little point. No pun intended. But yeah, I heard about that was a little while ago. But yeah, you got some crazy people out there, again, doing stuff like that. Just like well, not quite just like, but in Malaysia, they have that festival every year. I think it's around Ramadan. basically these guys don't drink any alcohol, don't eat any seafood, they fast for a while. And then basically they have these big old huge metal meat hooks through their back. And they basically hang themselves from these carts, and they go on parade. And you'll see these guys with 5 and 6 hooks up their back, and they'll just be swinging on them.
I've seen that. No,
yeah,
I've seen that on Ripley's Believe It or Not, though.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen a group of people that wanted to be a human mogul, so they all pierced their backs and then...
Exactly. That's something that happens every year, that these people do. And yeah, it's basically just one of those things. I hesitate to say mind over matter, because that implies so many things. But yeah, I mean, essentially these people, they can just, pinch their skin into a big old ball, shove a big old meat hook through it, and hang from it. It's really weird. But like I say, I mean, it's just one of those things that once you understand it, it's not mystical. And actually, the guy, James Randi, has talked about this. A lot of times those people will say that you need to fast. You cannot have alcohol because it's a religiously based experience. You need to go through all these orders of the religion before you can do this, otherwise you'll be hurt. And other people go out there and say, no, they down the beer, and then they get, hooked up and hang around for a while. So it's not religious or anything like that, but it is kind of freaky to watch. So... All right. Anyway, we've got about 10 minutes left in the show. Again, anyone who's watching Atheist-Friendly People, we're going to be going down to Chili's on the southeast corner of I-35 and 183 after the show. Anyone who wants to come down there and join us, you are more than welcome to do so. Let's go on to callers. We have got Andrew, you there?
Yes.
What you got for us?
I want to know, even though the Pope was a different religion than you, do you think he was a good person?
I honestly haven't followed him enough.
What do you
know what he's done? What?
What do you not believe in him?
What do you mean?
Disagree with him?
Well, basically the teachings. The teachings of Christianity in general and Catholicism specifically, both are wacky.
And I heard that you had a ring of fur on your butthole. Is that true?
Again, Pope has said some weird things, I'm sure. The main issue I have with the Pope is just that, again, he's teaching a religion which I think is fundamentally wrong. I do not believe anything of what he believed in the religious sense. And so promoting this, I think, is a bad thing. I have issues with that. Do I think him personally was a bad person? Doubtful, but I don't
know him personally.
Exactly. I don't know all that much of the specifics of what he did.
I don't have any reason particularly not to like him. I haven't heard of him doing any too crazy stuff.
Exactly.
And,
which is kind of why I don't have a big issue with this, is because he didn't show up on my radar all that often as saying wacky things and being completely out there.
I do have an article here from the Vatican. The Vatican puts out a newspaper apparently called the Zenit, and they had interviewed some Catholics about their opinion of the separation of church and state. And I don't really have much more to report on that, but it sounds like a lot of Catholics feel that we should be trying to get the separation of church and state removed.
Yeah. I've also heard some other articles talking about how the Pope has basically been in favor of separation of church and state and keeping the powers separate. So again, where the truth in that lies, I'm not positive. But yeah, I have seen that both ways. So.
It sounds like they feel that Americanism and Catholicism, it says, in fact, many Catholic leaders and intellectuals eventually came to believe in an essential harmony of Catholicism and Americanism.
Okay.
They are the same thing.
Yeah.
If you are Catholic, I don't know.
You're an American.
You're an American. They can move together in harmony, which it's always been, it's continuing point of controversy. A lot of people are trying to pass laws that bypass the whole separation of church and state thing. I have another article here about a Pennsylvania town where they are, doing all this stuff with textbooks and teachings in biology classes where the teachers are required to, when they're teaching the theory of evolution, really make sure that the students understand that this is just a theory and it hasn't been proved, and here are some other theories which are intelligent design and stuff like that. And
the point I would like to make on that is, one, I wouldn't have such a huge problem with that if they would first point out, here is the scientific process. Here is a hypothesis. Here is testing. Here is evidence. Here is a theory. Because evolution is a theory. I understand that completely. So is gravitation and electromagnetism. They're also theories. Theory, as opposed to common popular belief, is not just a good idea. It's something that's backed up by mountains of evidence. A hypothesis is what everyone is thinking of. That's something that's just a good idea. It's a hypothesis that gravitation works by little invisible elves with pitchforks holding everything down to the earth. So it's a hypothesis. It's got no evidence backing it up, so it's not a theory. There are better theories out there. So evolution is a theory. I 100% accept that. It's just the definition of a theory is a little bit more than just a good frickin' idea. Intelligent design is not a theory. It is a hypothesis. It is a bad hypothesis at that. It is basically just saying, nuh-uh. It's nothing but a big argument from incredulity. That's all it is. They look at evolution and say, I don't see how anything like that could possibly have come about by chance, therefore it must have been designed. What arguments do you have to support that? Do they have any evidence of that? Do they have anything to back this up? No. They simply look at it and say, nah, it wasn't like that. So if they make any predictions, if they come up with any evidence, I would love to see it. They should have that in science classes if they come up with any solid evidence. But they haven't, and they won't, and they don't because they can't. So, and as far as teaching it in science classes, I'm sorry, science is not a democratic process. You don't get to vote in the good ideas and the bad ideas. You don't get to say, I really don't like that we die, even though it's scientifically proven. So we're not going to teach that one. We're just going to ignore that, those convenient or inconvenient fact things. We'll ignore all that stuff because we don't like the conclusions that it draws. Science is not there to make the world a happy, shiny place. It's there to find out what the truth is and work on that to try and make the world a better place by knowing things and understanding things. How do you think the polio vaccine came about? It was through science and through testing and through biology and chemistry. It wasn't because some person in, a big shiny suit who believed in God said, thou shalt have polio vaccines, and pulled it out of a Bible.
Anyway,
so I can rant once in a while too.
There's a funny quote at the end of this article. Pastor Ray Mummert in Pennsylvania concludes this article by saying, we've been attacked by the intelligent, educated segment of the culture, he said, adding that the school board's declaration is just the first step. It took us 30 or 40 years to eliminate God in school. It will probably take us 30 or 40 years to get him back. You take a little step first, then a little bite, then another little bite, and another, said Steve Farrell, a nursery keeper who dreams of the return of prayer in class.
Yeah. They have this all outlined on a website. It's called the Wedge Strategy. And they're not exactly that, they're not hiding it all that well. They started out with saying, we want the Bible and Christianity and Jesus taught in schools. We got that knocked down on church-state separation. So they say, okay, fine. We say God. We want God in the classrooms. God created everything and da-da-da-da. Sorry, church-state separation issues. Fine. Intelligent design. It wasn't God. It was just some intelligence got us here. You're still talking about God. Let's face it. So can't teach that either. Now they've finally gotten back to the point of saying they're barely proposing that. Now what they're doing is just saying evolution couldn't have happened like that. There are problems with evolution, which we haven't found yet. We haven't gotten answers to. So it couldn't have happened like that. So they're not even proposing intelligent design anymore, hardly. They're just saying, let's introduce the critiques of evolution that are out there.
Well, it's not just that either. They also have a moment of silence in
exactly
classrooms here in Texas.
Exactly. They've had that
at the beginning of class. They couldn't pass having a prayer at the beginning of class, so they passed having a moment of silence. I don't know how they got that through. That seems to me like a waste of time that you could either be doing your homework, at home sleeping, or studying or learning something.
Yeah.
During time that I'm paying my tax dollars for their kids to be in school, I don't want them to be just sitting here staring at the walls and picking their noses, which they're going to do anyway, but at least they could be learning something at the same time.
Exactly. And actually, this is what happened in Louisiana, and this is what they're counting on, of course, is you introduce the moment of silence. And then you find out, well, kids don't know how to use a moment of silence, so we're going to pray. And so then they started having prayer over the loudspeakers by the teachers and stuff like that. So, I mean, again, it's just trying to get their foot in the door. Once they get this critiques of evolution in, then they can start pushing for intelligent design. Once they get that in, then they can start promoting God. Once they get that in, then they can start pushing the Bible. Once they get that in, then they can go for Jesus and take back the prayers. So, again, I mean, this is on their website. They have it documented, step by step, which year they want to try and have intelligent design in the schools. They document all this stuff. It's ridiculous. It's insane. It's moronic. But it's real. All right. Anyway, we're going to go on to a couple more callers before the end of the show. First off,
a reminder, though, we're going to Chili's after the show. Just want to make sure we've got a few minutes left. Chili's at the corner of I-35 and 183.
Yep.
Come meet us there if you're atheist or atheist friendly.
Yep. And also, if you don't get a chance to get on the air, or you see us in rerun and you want to get something over to us, we have an email address, tv@atheist-community.org. If you write to that, it'll get to the hosts and the co-hosts and some of the producers and everything like that, and we will answer your questions. If there's anything good, we'll also bring it on the air. Let's go on to another quick caller. Let's see. I think we have Jeff. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, what you got for us? You just got a couple minutes left.
Yeah, be real quick about this. I think how religion originally got started, kind of got the ball rolling, was way back in the olden days. People were more or less slaves or underlings to the wealthy and the land barons, and the only way they could keep them in line is say, well, yeah, your plight now is bad, but one day if you do what we say, you're going to go to this better place and be there for eternity.
Yeah.
And I really think that's how the whole thing got started. And people got sucked into this. If we can't explain it, then it has to be the God's fault, whatever gods they were, or whoever's religions they were believing in. And I just think that's kind of how the whole thing got started, and it just snowballed from there. If we can't explain it, it's God's fault. And the only way to explain our life is to know that there's going to be a better place to go to. And it's all poppycock. What fairy tales you want to believe.
Exactly.
And what you're being told. But that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I've heard that. Also, one of the co-hosts on the show, Jeff D., usually puts forth the idea that it probably started as just a good show, in terms of the guy who could tell the better story of what happened noticed that people liked him better. And so if you can come up with stories about the origin of the universe and such, people like to hear those stories. You get popular. So it just kind of goes from there.
Well, not only that, but when I was becoming a bat mitzvah when I was about 13, I asked my rabbi, Rabbi, isn't it possible that this is all just based on a series of hallucinations and stuff like that? And my rabbi's response was, as a matter of fact, it is written that the really elite rabbis who used to write the scriptures used to take a special herb that would help them to hear God better when they were listening to God or writing all this stuff down. So,
about as blatant as you can get it.
So saith my rabbi.
Anyway, we're going to let you go. We've got about 30 seconds left, but thanks a lot for calling in. All right. Again, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Keryn, thank you very much for coming on.
Good to be on. It's been a couple of months. It'll be another month again before I'm on again.
Yes. Next week, we are going to have, the plan is to have Jeff D. on. So that should be another interesting week. All right. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Sorry that we had a shorter show today, but hey, you can thank the Mormons for that one. We will be on again next week. So everyone have a great week. Come down and meet us after the show, and we'll talk to you then.